Hi, this is Charlotte Wessels, and you are listening to Interview Under Fire.
All right, everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Interview Under Fire. This is your host, Sunny, along with a very special guest returning, the immensely talented Dutch singer-songwriter and Charlotte Wessels. Such an honor to have you back. Thank you so much again for joining our IUF series today. Charlotte, this has been a wild but busy last few years, like we just talked about in the pre-interview for you. You dropped from Tales from 6 Feet Under Part 1 and 2, and then your growing Patreon in that process, and now your third solo album, The Obsession. The word incredible would be putting it very lightly. But
Oh.
how are you? I don't think I asked you this yet. And how have you been since, of course, once we last spoke 3 years ago? It's been a minute, so we got some catching up to do.
Okay, where do we
Let's
start?
take a deep breath. Let's digress.
No, I'm doing good, thank you. We've been working so hard on the obsession, and now we're pretty close to the release date, so I'm very, very excited. I can't wait until everyone gets to hear it. Yeah, and we're working really hard to, you know, do everything that goes into a release like this and preparing for the live show, so not a dull moment.
No, not at all. I also want to congratulate you on all the well-deserved recognition your music has been getting so far with those handful of singles that released. I think The Crying Room just released like 5 days ago. And then you had
Yes.
The Exorcism, Chasing Sunsets, and Dopamine, which obviously features your collaboration with Simone. And of course, plenty more where that came from. A lot of things to discover about this unique album and beyond. If I'm not mistaken, The Crying Room is up for, and I just voted on Metal Hammer's vote, I think, Song of the Week, or
Yeah,
and you are maybe, I think you're right behind Winrose,
yeah.
and you're beating one of my favorite bands, Gojira. So this is a big deal, and I fucking love this album, and we'll talk about that. But we're talking about Gojira. Did you see the Olympics? Did you see what they did?
No, of
Okay.
course I didn't see like the most important moment in metal in like the last few years. No, yeah, of course I saw it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I came in an accident. I was coming to lunch during my work break, and I forgot it was actually happening at that time. And so I ended up missing some of my work because I wanted to see the whole performance. But for someone like you, of course, for someone like us who loves heavy metal as much as we do you think that changed anything for the heavy metal landscape going forward? Because some people are saying yes, it did. Some people are saying, oh, it's just a show, no big deal. They did the performance. There's two sides of this, but someone like you who actually does perform, what did you see from that?
I, a lot of those moments, I think they make a big difference for, first of all, the artist.
Yeah.
Like weirdly so, but since there was this girl screaming on Eurovision, like I've heard that click with some of my friends who don't listen to metal, and it's like, hey, isn't that an like it's interesting when something like that happens on like this big mainstream cultural moment.
Hmm.
Whether it changes something for metal as a whole, I don't know, because it also brings up like a lot of the old arguments, like it's so satanic, it's so this, it's so that.
That
Uh,
was crazy.
I uh, so I am not sure. I am always kind of on the fence between putting, too much emphasis on like these cultural events, but then, you know, this is about culture.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's big. I think it's big. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I guess majority of the people did know that they were originally from France, I think, because there's also a history behind that song, which, if you do your research behind that song, and they just dropped it on Spotify this past weekend. It's pretty rich, so it really does tie in even more if you even read up to it. Now moving forward, did you want to add something? Because I feel like you're
Yes, yes. This
yeah,
poll, this poll is like I don't usually care about polls is the
yeah,
thing, but it's Windrose and it's Gojira, and I thought that I would be up against Gojira, but I'm up against Windrose, and I didn't even know that
uh-huh.
dwarf metal was a thing.
Yeah, neither did I. We had Winrose on, I think 2 years ago, and I was reading up about that band's history. I was like, dwarf metal, huh? Did I just make that up? But it's there's a history behind that too, actually.
Yeah. And I know that they've got like during their gigs they do this thing like uh they play with like the elf rivalry, from
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. My dog's name is Legolas, so this
No
feels
way.
very
Oh, I
personal.
think I did remember that. I think I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so it feels personal, but no, I it's all
I,
in good
I,
spirits.
I don't know if the polls have closed, but I do urge everyone to go out there and vote for Charlotte, please, because you're not that far behind. I looked at the polls, like I was like, oh
Woo!
my goodness, this is. I'm not surprised because we'll talk about the album, but I wanted to talk about this really quick, if possible, because I don't know if we had a chance to talk about it last time, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your other shows, but Charlotte, you've started, I think this marks maybe 20 or 20 over that on how long you've been performing.
Yeah,
2004 is when you first started with your first band. And, your influences, you have one hell of a range, Charlotte, whether it's personal or professional. Who were your influences, I guess, and what do they mean to you? Because you bring in jazz, you bring in classical, you bring in guttural, and coming from someone who's I play the violin, so it's so funny how classical and metal come together. But yeah, talk about that if you could. When you come to your influences, what sticks out to you when the first person or thing comes to your mind?
and honestly, for this album specifically, I think I was most inspired by my bandmates, by
Yeah,
by them, by knowing that they would be on this record. Like, if I have to uh, pinpoint anything that has pinpoint or that has influenced the songwriting the most, also compared to the compilation albums, like knowing that they were going to be involved, knowing that we would perform these songs live, that has had like a really big influence. Like I would be thinking like, um would this be a part, that Joey would enjoy, or
hmm
that. So I think that actually has been really influential. Taking it broader than that, like I've always listened to very different artists. I love pop music. I love classical music. I yes, I was in like a big band doing jazz as well.
yeah,
Classic rock, grunge, everything. So um, in that sense, it's hard to pinpoint anything. Like there's some artists which have always kind of been um, returning to my playlists, like Radiohead's one of them, Nick Cave's
yeah,
one of them.
very
But
cool.
these are all artists that kind of have been changing their styles as well. So how that influences it, I don't really know.
That's a good answer. It really shows probably you're just how big your catalog of influences is because it's feeding into your creativity and how you're able to put it out to,
Yeah.
someone like me and even your fans. And I'll never stop talking about this because first time we indirectly met, you and me, was 2019. And I will never stop talking about it because it was so great because I was interviewing what's it from Amorphous. Is it Timo? Um what's the front man? I forget his name. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and you were on the couch on the other side behind me, and then the thing is these performances that because that was the first time I saw you, of course, with Delane live. The live presence, Charlotte, because this is a topic I'll never stop talking about because you've been making the rounds lately because you put on these breathtaking performances and these unforgettable stage presence that really leave fans talking about you the most. In a way, it's like tapping into a more complete version of yourself when you're on stage. I don't know if you agree or disagree to that, but what is it about live music that really brings out the best in you, Charlotte? Because you have some festivals, or if you've already played some festivals, I think, uh, since this past summer. But I feel like out of anything you've done in your life, this is where you are in your element. Would you agree to that?
Um, well, let me say I'm very happy to hear it because I get insecure about it, especially not having done it for a while.
Yeah. Well, you
So,
picked up right where you left off. I can tell you that much.
no, well, thank you. No, I'm not sure if I would agree to it at this moment,
Mhm.
but I'm very grateful to hear it, and it's, I think, a boost that I need. So thank you.
No, yeah, it's I mean, those performances, and like, of course, as a journalist I see the people's reactions. It's just, man, who was that girl, man? People who've never even heard of you. Like, I remember bringing my brother with me and he's never heard of Delane, and he that was the entire night. This was 2019, talking about your presence, and you're just everyone knew that you were in the room because of the way you just connected with the audience. And you're doing it again in another fashion on which with this album, which let's get to right now, because The Obsession drops on September 20th, right? Now, we'd mentioned the other bands that you've taken a part of, especially with Delane, of course. That was a big part of your life. But knowing how successful you were with that band in particular and others, last time we talked, Charlotte, we mentioned pressure at if there was any level you were feeling jumping into a role, a solo career after Delane. Now that we are a few years removed from that, you've been solo since then. Do you think you've found your true sound, like your identity with The Obsession?
Yeah, very much so, in the sense that with the previous two albums, I was experimenting, I was teaching myself production, I was kind of exploring all of these different genres that, I've been working within a certain framework for 16 years, and no matter how much I love that framework, it was interesting to do some other things. And a lot of the choices that were made on those albums were um, sort of circumstantial. The very choice to put out the album was very circumstantial because,
Hmm.
it was intended to be a side project, but then the band split. It became my main focus. And then I thought, do I want my main thing to be behind a paywall? And then I thought, no. And so, there were a lot of things that were just me being like, okay, so then I'll put them on Spotify. Okay, but then I want the physical product as well. Okay, well, we're a year further. I have more songs. Maybe if I'm going back on stage again, it would make sense to do a second. Like there was a lot of, like that, like
Hmm.
maybe. And with this album, I know that because when I was putting out Tales from 6 Feet Under Volume 2, I was already thinking like I'm kind of ready to do something like an album project again. So not writing a song every month and then putting them together, but really to work on a collection of songs with the idea of an album, with the idea of recording it with the band, with the idea of performing it live. And and it feels like on this album things are not circumstantial. Everything is very deliberate, and all the songs make me very happy. That's not to say like this is it and my sound will never change,
Hmm.
because I think that, most of us do change and shift our sound and try out different things. But I feel for where I am now, this album perfectly reflects that. Yeah.
Now, let me follow that up, and you've praised that just so beautifully. And keep me posted on how we're doing on time, because my mind will explode if I don't get this out there. Because goodness gracious, this album. That's how I felt listening to this. And I think I broke the replay button. But not only did you nail the sounds of your own sounds of talked about jazz, talked about classical, and of course the heavy part, the heavy elements on that, but you expanded on all those elements. You took it to a whole new level. It was very hypnotizing, because my personal favorite on this album, if I may, is I don't know if this was intentional, Charlotte, but the trifecta of songs of praise, all You Are, and Vigor and Valor. Those choruses are a thing of beauty. I'm getting goosebumps right now. You can't really see, but those choruses are a thing of beauty. And of course, Chasing Sunsets all the way to Soft Revolution. As I'm talking about it, I feel like this album is like a revolution of Charlotte, right? Like it's already sneaked its way into my top 10 of the year. And
Oh,
these captivating melancholy intertwined with dark and catchy elements, blending into like this progressive and like heavier soundscapes. It was also emotional. I don't know if you ever heard of a game called this is random. I heard of a game called Elden Ring, but so I started playing that game again, and I think I found a new soundtrack. So as I was playing that, I started playing that game again, and I was preparing for this interview. I'm stuttering because I'm so excited, is because I had sometimes I have the audio playing when I prep for my interviews, and I just game. So anyone who doesn't know, The Obsession fits perfectly with anything like if you put like Lord of the Rings, even like Elden Rings, it all ties in together with the lore and things of that. But this album showed different sides of you, I think, Charlotte. I wonder, like the sounds that I have mentioned, how much did things change from when you first started composing on an album like The Obsession to where you ended up finishing it? Did you already have a specific sound from day one, or did it just evolve into this monster that we're listening to now?
Okay, so I have to respond to this by you can actually hear that. And I don't mean this to be like a cheap pitch of my Patreon, but what I did for this album is like the first version of these songs, because I had to find a way to work on this album and keep doing like a song every month on Patreon at the same time. So I made it a
Mhm.
part of the process. So what I did is uh I wrote the songs kind of similar to what I did on Tales from 6 Feet Under, the two compilation albums here in the basement, with mostly digital instruments. And then I put them on the Patreon. So patrons now, they already know like the first incarnation of the songs, and when the album comes out, they will get to hear like what has changed in the
Wow.
process. And if you like the album and you're curious, like, okay, where do these songs come from? Likewise, you can go back and listen to their first versions on there. So that I just had to mention that without being, yeah.
No, no, no. Please promote it because people need to hear this, the evolution of this
Yeah, yeah,
sound. So,
I think it's interesting, but if you do listen, you will hear that, on certain songs, it is really a matter of, rearranging it, Timo taking my MIDI guitars and making them heavy as big riffs and, working on like the guitar arrangements and like in general making the songs ready for the band recordings and everything. And I also have to mention Vikram
mhm.
Shankar, who did key and orchestrations. I was planning, like in the beginning, I was quite happy with like my own key and orchestration things. I was like, maybe for one or two songs, I'll send it off. And I hadn't worked with Vic before, and I sent him the songs, and I got the first song back, and I was like, so in the end, I
Yeah.
just sent him everything. But that's sorry, I get
No, no, it's
distracted.
good.
But what I think that the main thing that you'll hear, so some songs it's just the basically the same song but bigger and better. But in other songs, like for example, Dopamine in the first version, it was just harp and vocals, and we made like an entire band version out of that. So that's like a really big difference. Um, and then for me, the biggest difference is, I like to think of myself as someone who looks at the song as a whole rather than, I'm a singer, so I'll make big vocal arrangements and that's it. I like to think of myself like that, but uh, a lot of the things I stress about are mostly like I still approach it as like a singer. Like I'll be
Mhm.
most obsessed about, those. And what you can hear on this record is that, every piece, every element, every aspect of the songs has had someone who is the absolute best at that part obsess about it, all of the, you know involving this team, involving these people, like there is no stone unturned. Again, like there's no coincidence on this
Yeah.
album. Like, and that to me is like the biggest difference that makes for me, for example, when I listened to the first mix of Soft Revolution. And I can say this without being cocky about my own work because it's their work that I was like, so when I listened to like the new version of Soft Revolution, and I heard like the guitar solo, the orchestrations, um like I ugly cried, not gonna lie. Like I was like, so it's, yeah, there is a level of time because
Mhm.
the previous songs were also just in a month, but there's just a time, attention, and obsession over detail on this record that, yeah.
I appreciate all of that. I'm gonna give a quick shout out again to Vikram because Vikram was on my show not too long ago when he was doing his work with Silent Skies. You had that is a guy I urge you to work with as much as possible because he has a passion like no other. Oh my goodness, because
Yeah, he's an absolute delight to work with as well. I
Mhm.
remember like the first songs that I sent him, I sent like a big email with, and I want this and that, and can you look at this and that,
Oh, no big deal. He can handle it.
and I
Yeah.
sent him and I sent him like mood boards, because I was like, I don't know. And at the last song, I was just like, here's the song.
Yeah.
Do your thing, I don't even have to say anything. So yeah, it was absolutely wonderful having him involved in this process as well.
No, no, he nailed it. It's one thing to write out your lyrics, but it's another thing to project it into the form of art that you want to convey. And Vikram helped you with that. And I want a quick shout out again. I want to give another one more shout out to Timo, Otto, and Joey, and Sophia, and Elaine, I think. And
Yeah.
is it Guido? And
Guido.
yeah, Hito, yeah. And all these musicians, they went above and beyond with
Yeah.
their instrumentals, with their yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Andy Van Dat, who mastered
Oh
it,
yeah.
also did
Did I miss
a
that
great
part?
job.
And he is on there. Yeah, he is on there. That's the
Yeah,
last guy I was missing because I've heard that name. He's known for his work with Porcupine Tree, Deep Purple, Dream Theater. Like his resume goes on and on. So all those people collectively, they really this like you said, you can see a hint of everyone else's obsession in the song. And there's Legolas back there guest starring. And of course, we got to mention, of course, Elisa and Simone because you collaborate on these magnificent songs. I felt like, and not only did it make the album that process easier for you, Charlotte, but it made it fun, enjoyable to create an album. I don't think people talk about that. Yeah, it's hard work, but you're having a good time with, collaborating with these amazing people that really, I feel like, bring out the best in you.
yeah, yeah, it was amazing. Like the moments where when we were recording, when Joey was recording the drums, we were all in the studio. The band was playing along with like the drum recordings because
Mm-hmm.
we really wanted to get that organic like band feel into the recordings. And that moment of being like in the studio all together after being in my basement alone for a long time. It was very beautiful, very, very emotional, very nice. And also, like you said, the collaborations were amazing. It was so nice to work with Simone. The song is kind of about the subject that we bonded over,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like a real full circle moment to have her sing on the song. Elisa, I've worked with her. This is my fifth collaborative song
Yeah,
with her.
I
Like
know.
I love working with her. So I'm very grateful to have these talented musicians on the album. I think there's one thing that we've missed, which is G Roots, which is the gospel choir that stars on Praise,
Yes. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
which also brought me a lot of joy. Those recordings, it was so cool. Uh,
How are we doing on time, really quick, Charlotte? Or do we have five
we
minutes?
have 1 minute, but I could stretch it a tiny little
Okay,
bit.
I got one last question, okay? So I know we've covered a great deal of topics on this conversation. It's just always great to have you back on here. And obviously, I've been following your work. You know, I've been following your work, Charlotte. I mean, I'm one of your biggest fans, of course. I got to be a professional too, but the discussions we've had are just so in depth. They're so enjoyable. You being so true to yourself and sharing your perspectives with me on this podcast, like you make my job easy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
And I really can't wait to see this next chapter of Charlotte unfold. But here you are, right? Over 2 decades. We're gonna end this on this question. Here you are, over 2 decades, multiple full-length albums, touring, your growing fan base, your relationship with the music and yourself and Legolas. And the results are speaking for themselves. Okay. Let me remind you, celebrate your successes along the way. There's this level of inspiration to what you're doing here, and you're inspiring someone like me all the way here in freaking Dallas, Texas, and you've seen all the fans. I know you, as an artist, you got to stay off social media. It's so many blah 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 blah. It's toxic, but all these fans are coming out, and man, I've never seen this side of Charlotte before. Oh my God, thank you for helping me get through this time in my life. It's Let me remind you, it's out there, and it's still gonna keep coming. If you were to give your 2004 self advice from this version that's sitting in front of me right now, what would it be? And we'll end it there after you say that.
Um, oh, I just recently watched The Butterfly Effect again, so
I was,
I
oh my
was
gosh, I watched that movie not too long ago. The irony of all that.
I was going to say like, oh, maybe to go change to study music because now and then I feel like I wish I had actually studied music instead of like art history. Sometimes I feel like I should have, done more because I feel like I still have so much to learn but but then maybe some other things would have gone differently. Um, This is a very hard question after
I
just watching
know.
The Butterfly Effect, and I have a obsessive. I cannot. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
will think about it. If I
It's
think
okay.
about the answer, I will let you know.
Just DM me. It's all good because
Yes.
it's a powerful question because there's it. I think that's an answer. Just
Oh,
that
you
right
know
there.
what? Stop eating meat because I was eating meat for a very long time, and it took me so long to. That's an easy one, actually. That's a change that I could have made way earlier. Yeah, I'm thinking just music, but
Oh,
that was
oh yeah.
actually a life change that I should have made sooner. So yeah, yeah.
You've heard it from here first. That's the best way to go. Hey, I need to. Oh, I got friends, vegan friends that want me to convert, and I need to do that. Because I'm in my mid 30s. We're only getting older. We got to take care of ourselves. Got to take care of our mentals going forward. But hey, you said it. The perfect. If you think of
That's
anything else, feel free to
what,
message me. But
it's what
Char.
I would say to myself, I'm not telling anyone else what they should do, but that's what I would say to my 2004 self.
Okay. We're definitely doing another podcast down the road, Charlotte, because it's so great to come back to Dallas soon, I hope. If
Yeah,
not,
I
if not, I may just have to just go and see you guys perform in festivals. I haven't been to Europe in like 20 years. So if I were to tell my 2004 self, go to fucking Europe. There you go. All right, Charlotte, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. This has been amazing. Everyone who's listening, please, please, please listen to the obsession because it's going to end up being on my top 10 of the year. I know it is because it's just so good. Drops on September 20th on Napalm Records. Do me and Charlotte a favor, subscribe to her Patreon, and the things that she talked about, you see so many different sides of each song. You'll get it on that and on that portal. And trust me, that's something you don't want to miss. And of course, buy the record, go see her perform because we talked about all that. Trust me, because she is amazing live. Any last words for the fans? Charlotte, just before we
to
sign
any
off here.
listening, paying attention. Thank you so much for the interest. I don't take it for granted. It means a lot to me, so thanks.
Hey, you take care of yourself, okay? And everyone, you can listen to this podcast on all major podcast streams out there. Check us out on interviewunderfire.com. Charlotte, much love. Take care of yourself. Nothing but the best for you and Legolas and your bandmates for here on out. Stay in touch, and I will see you down the road, okay?
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Talk to you later.
Well, your tone changed after the hunger strikes another game. Scarlet summer growing pains. I follow you all the same. Oh, I kissed you sickly, smoking out sadness in your room. Was the first time ever I thought of expelling you. 'Cause I'm gonna stay up, I'm gonna stay up loud, I'm gonna stay up, I'm gonna stay up loud, I'm gonna stay up, I'm gonna stay up loud.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Interview Under Fire podcast. If you guys liked what you heard, please subscribe and share our channel. And please leave a 5-star review as that helps us tremendously. If you'd like to check out more, visit www.interviewunderfire.com or our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And finally, we want to thank you all for the support you've been giving us. Keep it burning.